Hey there, everyone, and welcome to another episode of the Earth Station One podcast. That's right, folks. We're back, and it is time for another movie review. And we are looking at one that I've been actually looking forward to since they announced it early on. And we are going to be talking about Wonka. Wonka is a prequel to Willy Wonka and the Chocolate Factory. And we are not going to talk about the evil Charlie and the Chocolate Factory tonight at all. I just want to try to blot that one out of my mind. Willy Wonka has a special part in my life because it was the first movie I had ever gone to see at the movies when it first came out. And it was pretty amazing seeing Gene Wilder mesmerize people up on screen and torture kids. It was just awesome, and everything. And so I didn't know what we were going to get with this. And who knew we were going to get a full-blown musical out of this? And it was a ton of fun, and we're going to talk all about it tonight. If you haven't seen it yet, folks, we are going to spoil it. So be prepared, and I think it's going to be a ton of fun to do it, and we have an amazing crew to talk all about this tonight. Of course, we couldn't do this without our movie reviewer. Ashley Pauls is back. Welcome.
Thank you. I'm so excited to chat with you guys again. This in particular was a movie that I was looking forward to, so I'm really excited that I get to chat about it with you all.
No, it's going to be a ton of fun. And it's interesting, too, because, we didn't have you for Godzilla. So we were like, oh, please be ready for Wonka and everything. And so I'm so very happy to have you. And this is going to be a first that we have a married couple on with us. We've had Matt Sweatman on quite a bit. Welcome, Matt.
Hey, hi, guys.
And we are joined also by his lovely wife, Elaine. Welcome.
Hello. How are you?
We've had you on a few times over the years, and it's awesome. We have you on when we talk about Outlander or some of the other programs that we've talked about. So it's fantastic to have you up here for this one. So I think this could be interesting. And of course, I couldn't do this without my co-host. Mr. Mike Gordon is here.
Howdy.
How are you, my friend?
Oompa Loompa.
Mm-hmm.
I had to get over my Oompaphobia.
Oompaphobia before
I had to really
anything
confront
else?
my Oompaphobia. I mean,
Of course.
to do this because, I mean, some people may know, I've talked about it on the show before. Heck, we actually did an episode. I think it was going to the Wayback Machine 214.
Wow.
We talked about Charlie and the Chocolate Factory, and I think we did a whole episode on everything related to the books and the Gene Wilder movie and the other movie that we don't like to talk about. I saw Wonka, or I saw Willy Wonka, the original. I didn't see it in the movie theater. I saw it on TV, but I will never. It was an unforgettable experience for me because the Oompa Loompas scared the bejesus out of me. I mean,
of course.
I ran around the house screaming. I was, and that was just like 2 years ago. No, just kidding. It was. I don't know how old I was.
Explains so much, my friend.
I don't know how old I was, but I was. I mean, I was terrified. I had run across other movie baddies before, but man, the Oompa Loompas for some reason just hit a nerve on me that so even today, even as I'm seeing this movie, when I hear that music start, I get chills and the hairs stand up and I'm like, oh no, here it comes.
Mm-hmm. Oh, you must have loved the closing scene then for this movie.
Well, we'll get into the details about the whole thing, I'm sure.
I'm sure. Take it away, sir.
Sure. Well, as Mike said, spoilers, and it is a prequel to it's a prequel to, I would say, the 1971 movie. It's not, more so that it is a prequel to the book. But I mean, we can talk about that a little bit. Those who have read the book, it's been so long. I think I read both books when I was a kid, but to be honest with you, I don't really remember them. But we can talk about the box office now. To put it in some perspective, the box office for the 1971 classic that we all say is the best Wonka movie ever made was very low. It was not a huge success when it was released in 71. It eventually earned about $4 million worldwide, and it had a budget of about $3 million. So, it cleared it. It made a quote unquote profit. It was the 24th highest grossing film of the year in North America. So that gives you an idea on just where it stood. And Paramount, who distributed it, did not know what to do with it. Eventually, Warner Brothers got involved and said, "We'll take it," and they released it on syndication. And that's where I think, as a lot of things like Wizard of Oz and other movies like It's a Wonderful Life, just became a huge hit. Like people just got to watch them year after year. Became a tradition. You just watch these movies, and Willy Wonka and the Chocolate Factory. I think a lot of people, now when it's funny because this is coming out and I'm hearing people say like, oh, nothing beats the original. Nothing beats the original. Like it can't hold a candle to the original. Well, when the original came out, it wasn't well beloved. So we'll see how this one does. Now, to compare, obviously the budget for this movie was quite a bit more. The budget, I think, was around 125 million, and that's quite a difference between now and 1971. It did okay. It did just shy of $40 million in the United States and Canada over the weekend. It did a bunch more in other territories. Worldwide, it's at 152.2 million. So it's not a and I think in today's box office, like those numbers are not too bad. Those are pretty solid,
especially for after COVID.
With everything that's going on, and how bad the box office has been this year. Warner Brothers has had one of the best years ever with Barbie. And I think they're pretty happy with this. They've got Color Purple opening this weekend. They've got Aquaman opening. So they're going to finish the year strong. I mean, if you're going to the movie theater for Christmas, you've got like 3 options there, and they're all from Warner Brothers. Disney is like nowhere to be found. But Warner Brothers is all over the theatrical market right now. So I think it's a pretty strong showing for this movie, especially considering that, as Mike alluded to, a lot of people were kind of surprised that this was a musical when the movie started, because it starts right off. There's no boom, it's a musical, which the 1971 one was a musical, so it's very much in that spirit. I knew it was a musical going in. I didn't. The trailers, I think, that I saw at least led me to believe that there was going to be singing and dancing. So I don't know what about you, Ashley? Where do you stand on the box office? And was it a surprise that it was a musical for you?
Yeah, I think exactly what you said, considering all the outstanding factors. I'm pleasantly surprised and pleased that it made 40 million. I think for this type of film in this market, that is a very good showing.
Yeah.
And
I know that this is not the Timothée Chalamet movie that you wanted to see this fall.
Yes.
Winter.
Yes.
From Warner Brothers.
Help me a little bit. I like to think of this movie as one of Paul Atreides' weird spice dreams. So this is one of his visions that he experiences a little too much spice in the desert. So that's how I like to look at this movie. But I had heard that it was a musical, and but interestingly, I've heard that they didn't necessarily heavily market it as a musical because musicals aren't always the most popular genre. So if you can kind of trick people to getting in the theater, they'll have a good time. It kind of reminded me in some ways of a similar vibe to The Greatest Showman, which didn't necessarily start out the strongest, but then developed a pretty big following. And now people really enjoy the songs and are familiar with the music. So I was also looking forward to this movie because the same people who made this also made the Paddington films.
Mm-hmm.
Those were never films that I had any interest in watching, but I heard people talking about them, and they will absolutely charm your socks off. They are quirky. They're funny. They're the perfect little British family movies. And this movie feels a lot like that. So if you enjoy those, I would definitely recommend this one. It didn't seem to have that kind of creepy edge that the Gene Wilder one does so well, where he's kind of charming but also kind of scared. Like, I don't know that I would let him babysit my children in a chocolate factory. Like, I don't think I would trust him with them. But Wonka, this prequel doesn't kind of have that little sliver of darkness, but I guess you could say he's still young, he's starting out, he's not jaded yet, so maybe he'll get there in a few years. But
yeah, I do not know what happened over the 50-year time period between one or the other, and we don't know. I mean, I think we'll talk about it at the end, whether or not there's rumors that this is supposed to start a whole new, what is it? They're calling it the Dahlverse or whatever of movies that they're exploring. So who knows? We may get more Wonka in the future, and maybe we'll chart that, road to cynicism for him.
Too much time around Oompa Loompas, maybe.
A little too much chocolate. Who knows?
Yep.
But Elaine, what about you? How did you feel? What are your feelings about this one going in? Like, your expectations?
I don't think I really had any expectations. I wanted to see it. I did know it was a musical, but in some sort, you said that Willy Wonka, like the 71 was a musical, and I guess it is, but I never really thought of it as a musical. Growing up as a kid, like Grease was a musical. I never thought of Willy Wonka as a musical. So this was a musical. Wonka was a musical. I enjoyed it. I had fun with it, and I enjoyed the songs. And and you mentioned Paddington. There are a lot of actors in this movie who were also in the Paddington movies. So there is a connection somewhere that there's crossover with the actors.
There's
Wonka
so much crossover in this between almost. Britain is not that big of an island, and they probably got 90% of the actors in the country in this one.
Yeah, and so that was fun too. Going, oh, I know who that person is. Oh, I know who that person is. We watch him in that show. We watch him in that show, and so that was kind of fun doing that throughout the whole movie.
I think every single one of them has some sort of British crime drama where they play a hard-nosed detective,
or they've been the victim of the murder in Death in Paradise or something. Yes,
absolutely. Yeah, true. Matt, what about you? What were your feelings going into this one? Where did you feel like the 71 one was beloved and couldn't be touched, or where did you have room in your heart for this one?
Yeah, I had room. I wasn't. I didn't really pin any kind of big hopes or expectations. I just was hoping that it'd be a decent movie. I'm like you, Mike, in that it was a regular on TV. Anytime they would broadcast it, it would be like Wizard of Oz. It would be like Willy Wonka and the Chocolate Factory, because there was so little of that kind of fantasy that appealed to me at a young age. So I can remember this being on TV. I can remember being frightened of it. Not just like you were the Oompa Loompas. Me, it was more just the hint that some dark things were happening to the kids in the factory. It felt very much like they were in constant mortal danger from something that shouldn't be. That feeling isn't here. He's much more wholesome, much more innocent character than Gene Wilder was in the original. So that surprised me a little bit. I expected a little more hint of darkness, and he's in a very dark world. The world around him is very dark, but Willy Wonka himself is very pure at heart. And I had an idea when Ashley suggested that this was a Paul Atreides fever dream. They missed an opportunity to do a little bit of an inside joke when one of his ingredients for the chocolate could have been the spice from the deserts of Arrakis.
Yeah, it's somewhere in that little box of ingredients of his, I'm sure.
Absolutely.
Mike, what about you? What, as you said before, you had a history with the original, the books, with the whole Roald Dahl legacy. But you said you were surprised that this was a musical. So going in, how overall, what were your thoughts coming out of here?
Going in, originally I was very open-minded, and yeah, I saw the one dance thing, and then the guy stopped him, said no daydreaming, and that type of that was at the beginning of the movie, and I was thinking, okay, that's cool, but then song after song after song, And I was thrilled with that. I loved every second of seeing the songs. The songs were catchy. The songs were fun. And like a few folks, I think Matt just said, it's hard to imagine this innocent, very good-hearted person becoming, the Willy Wonka that Gene Wilder became. And, being the dark, how dark it was. And, even the part, with the tunnel in Willy Wonka still to this day gives me the EBGBs. And so it's pretty awesome. And to, think that's the same person, but he's been burnt as in the original movie, they talk about how he's been burnt by people, trying to steal the secrets and trying to steal the food. And, Slugworth was mentioned in the first movie. You didn't hear of the other two, but it was still interesting that, you got the origins of all this. And it was great. The only distraction for me in this whole movie was what Elaine said, because of all the different actors in it. Oh, I know that person from Ghosts. Oh, I know that person. Oh, it's Mr. Bean, and, the whole thing, and it's just, it just went through, how many Doctor Who actors can you count in this one, and so it was awesome to see. And that was my only distraction with it. But I thought it was an awesome movie. And the thing that was cool about it is I went to an 11 a.m. show on Sunday to go see it, seeing it with a theater full of kids, and they were riveted to the movie. You couldn't hear a pin drop. Before, I was worried it was like during the previews even, blah, 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 kids talking and everything. As soon as the movie started, quiet. And that was amazing. And that says a lot about a movie right there.
Yeah, if it can, especially a kid's movie or a family movie, if it can keep a kid's attention, then that's a win. Because sometimes they can't.
No, very much.
You can really tell when you watch a kid's movie and the kids are talking all the way through it or whatever, they're not engaged, or there's certain sequences that like lose them. But I did not see this with children. So there was only about a handful of us in the theater when I was there. So that was on a Friday morning though. So I don't know. I don't think they're quite out of school yet or whatever. So, but despite the fact that, I have umbophobia, I love the first movie, the 71 movie a lot. I think it's brilliant. And I think it's one of Gene Wilder's best performances. He's so good in it, and it's such a layered role, as we've talked about it before. You guys have mentioned, he there is a darkness to him, but there's also compassion, and he flips that switch sometimes in a mid-sentence. And it's so, because I rewatched the 71 one as well on Friday night, and just to watch him again and to see if there was some correlation between these two performances. And yeah, it would be interesting to tell that story about how this Wonka, Timothée Chalamet, becomes, that, although that's not a very happy story. I can't imagine that trilogy ending very well. The 71 one is very much a musical. And I think to Elaine's point, when you think of a lot of kids' movies, Chitty Chitty Bang Bang, Wizard of Oz, you don't think of them as musicals. They're just kids' movies, right? But they are musicals. They're solid musicals, and a lot of them are really successful because they have really, really strong musical numbers. 1971's Willy Wonka has really, really strong musical numbers. I mean, Candyman, huge hit. Imagination is a huge song as well. Cheer Up Charlie, the Oompa Loompa song. I mean, it's got like earworms up the wazoo. This movie is pretty solid. I can't say that there was any one song that really, really like won me over like those do. A World of Your Own is pretty good, and I think if I heard it like every year consecutively, it would probably put an earworm in me, but if I was a kid, or it was on constantly or whatever. I appreciated the cast. I loved Timothy's performance. I haven't seen much of Timothy do other things. I mean, other than Dune, I think this is about it for me. But he's pretty solid. I think he was a great choice to play a young Wonka.
He was
I do
charming
know
as all can get out, truthfully.
yeah, I do know that I think I heard that the other actor that was in contention was what's his name? Spider-Man. And I'm pretty glad that didn't happen. Not to say that he couldn't have done it, but I just think Timothy just really owns it in a way that I think he owns this version of Wonka just as much as I think Gene Wilder did. He doesn't have as much layers to play with, but it's really difficult. The role that he has is playing this sort of innocent, positive character throughout that's unwaveringly positive. That's hard to do, especially and not be annoying. And I thought he did a really good job. And the rest of the cast is great too. The story is not as interesting as the 71 version, just because it's just about this sort of up and coming guy defying the odds, defying authority. That 71 film, the story is so good about these kids and the contest and this sort of like what happens with kids who are doing, let's face it. I mean, the kids in the 71 version are doing wrong, awful stuff. So they have it, quote unquote, coming to them. It's like watching a Friday the 13th movie, right? Those teenagers have it coming, right?
Those damn kids.
But there's nothing there's no layers like that here. So there's no, except for the chocolatiers, who I think outside of Timothy were I thought they were amazing. Patterson Joseph, I've always loved, but here he shines as Slugworth.
Yeah.
We don't see Slugworth in the 71 version.
Nope.
And I think you don't see, the other ones, as you mentioned, Mike, aren't referenced at all. Matt Lucas, this is perfect for him.
Yeah.
I don't think I was familiar with Matthew Baton as well, but
he's very big in Ghosts. He's one of the creators,
right.
And also one of the writers.
But Olivia Colman, I always love to see, and Rowan Atkinson as well, and Hugh Grant. Well, we'll talk about the Oompa Loompas in a bit, but if I can stomach it, But yeah, the Chocolatiers, great photo there that you're showing, Mike, for those people watching us on YouTube. It's just the confrontation that they have is just they're great. It's the scenes with all of them and confronting them. It's just, to me, the highlight of it. I was not as won over with Charlie's little pack of crew. I wanted to like them a lot, but to be honest with you, they just really didn't do much for me as characters. I thought there were too many of them. Anyway, we can sort of get more detail into it. Ashley, what'd you think of the characters overall?
Yeah, so I think overall the main word I would use to describe this is whimsical, and I think all the actors and performances did a good job kind of setting that tone and establishing that theme. Like you mentioned, Olivia Colman is always delightful. I love that she's just hamming it up, chewing scenery as the villain here. She was really funny, and I enjoyed her performance in it. The Chocolatiers, like you said, were also great. I enjoyed their song and dance number and their little secret lair. I thought was pretty funny. That was one of my favorite musical numbers and one of the ones that stood out to me. As a Downton Abbey fan, I was excited to see Mr. Carson.
Yes.
So I really liked him, although it's probably just a lot to do with the fact that I was delighted to see Carson, not necessarily his character, but I enjoyed getting to see him in that. And technically it's not a character, but seeing all the different chocolates and candies was another favorite part of the movie for myself. One of my other fandoms that I like to talk about is the Great British Baking Show. And so I've loved trying to learn more about making different baked goods and candies and things like that. And watching this movie just made me feel inspired and excited to go get out some of my candy molds and think of fun, creative things I could create. But yeah, I liked seeing all the unique chocolates, their little magical details like making people float, or like bringing the silver lining or bringing hope. So I really enjoyed seeing all the different creative chocolate candies that he invented and how that added to the magicalness of the story.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm. Elaine, what about you? What else is something else you took away from the movie?
I enjoyed. I had fun watching the play between the zookeeper, security guy, and the candy they kept giving him to have like the wild night and his different stages, like the champagne and then the port, and he passes out and he's calling his girlfriend, and then at the end of the movie, the security guard for the vault, they give her the chocolate and it's the same thing. And who does she call when she gets to that stage in the chocolate? It's the zookeeper security guy. And it's like, I was like, oh,
I think even Wonka says like,
what a small world.
Like, what are the odds?
Yeah. But there was another thing when I was watching it, and this may be because we have recently seen Annie on stage at the Fox, and we watched the 1981 movie, Annie. There are some similarities between Annie and Wonka to me, with they're talking about scrubbing and doing laundry and how hard it is. It's a hard knock life. They're like thrown into the coop if they misbehave, which is the closet where Miss Hannigan throws Annie all the time. There was some weird little similarities between Annie and Wonka.
I'm glad I was not the only one to see that. I was thinking the same thing.
Yeah, because I was like going, that kind of reminds me of Annie. Maybe it's just me, but that reminds me of Annie. So yeah, but that didn't make it a bad thing.
When they were doing the laundry, I was actually thinking Hard Knock Life.
Yeah.
The whole time.
But that's not a bad thing to me because I'm a huge Annie fan. But I thought that was kind of funny.
Yeah, Carol Burnett is so good in that movie. I think she's the best part of that movie to me.
Yes.
So I can understand that, and yeah, Olivia Colman does a pretty solid job in Wonka as well. Matt, what about you? What did you feel about the characters or any other aspect of the movie that run with you?
It had a very Charles Dickens like feel.
Absolutely.
This English city. I won't say town, but it's more of a city. And certainly the characters you had, the villains and their motivations was very much out of a Dickens novel. I enjoyed the characters. Elaine and me were constantly elbowing each other when somebody we recognized came on. So there was that. I like even the little throwaway character, the one who was trying to propose, and he got the chocolate, which gave him him confidence he needed. The one who was being proposed to, that's one of three actors we recognized from Ghost.
Right.
Yeah, and she was like the homeowner in Ghost, and then two of the ghosts were in it. One of them was the security guard, and the other one was the
chocolatier.
Yeah, the chocolatier, right?
Yep, he was the romantic poetry writer and Ghost. Right.
Yeah. There were a lot of people, but also the relationship between Bleacher and Mrs. Scrubbit, I think her name was. I had these down as a cheat sheet earlier, but I loved their interplay. I loved anytime Olivia Colman is given a chance to shine, and I think they really relished the scenes with her because they really did give her quite a few juicy scenes. And the guy who played the big guy, Bleacher, he's in a show we're watching now on BritBox called The Curse, where he plays this kind of dim-witted gangster type who has a very odd accent, a very odd way of speaking and thinking. Even odder than this character here. So it was a bit interesting seeing him again. I will say I was a little disappointed that we didn't get more Rowan Atkinson. For that big actor to really only have a couple of scenes which are significant, I was disappointed. I mean, I would like to have seen as much of him as Olivia Colman, because those are two people of equal stature I think deserved a lot of attention.
The Turner Classic Movies was showing 4 Weddings and a Funeral the other day with Hugh Grant, a very young Hugh Grant, and I was, Rowan Atkinson is sort of the main priest in that movie as well, and I got very similar vibes. I'm like, oh, here's Rowan Atkinson playing a incompetent holy man again. like so. So I thought, I don't know, they must be related in some way. And I didn't get the Annie, vibes from Mrs. Scrubbit, but I did get the Sweeney Todd, Mrs. Lovett vibes from Mrs. Scrubbit, and I thought, man, I now really want to see Olivia Colman play that role. Like, please, at some point, like, if we could do either a one-time thing on Broadway or something, I'm like, she would nail that part, I think, so well. But that's another movie with Johnny Depp, which we don't need to talk about. So anyway.
No.
I will say this. Okay, let me just put this out there, and then Mike, I want to hear something from you about the movie. Positive if you've got it. But
really?
I will say, like, I was concerned about this movie when it was announced, because the last thing that we had gotten from this universe was Charlie and the Chocolate Factory by Tim Burton. And, they made the choice, I think really, really bad choice, to have Johnny Depp play sort of a Michael Jackson-ish Willy Wonka, and it just didn't work. But they hinted, but not just hinted, I think they showed some flashbacks to his childhood and his origin. And when I heard that this was going to be a prequel, I was like, please don't follow in those footsteps. And I was really relieved. Within 5 minutes of this movie, I was relieved that they were not following in those footsteps at all, but they were telling a very different story, and much more in line with the Willy Wonka that I love and appreciate, that world that was created for the 71 movie. So,
well, yeah. Well, if you think about it, the Johnny Depp movie, which we don't speak of, is
for something we don't speak of. We've spoken a lot about.
They made him into Willy Wonka into a true psychopath. Into you never knew what you were going to get, and that was the interesting thing about it. Was with this, you got a young Wonka who had a mother that was very caring, very loving, and taught him about the joy of chocolate. And that was, in some ways very naive. His mom was going to appear when, his dreams came true and everything. And it was real interesting to see him in this movie. He got hit with some pretty big reality bombs. And that was one of the things I liked about it. It wasn't all sugarly sweet, to coin a phrase. And it was interesting to be able to watch the character grow. And you did get growth with him in this. And he learned, and he grew, and he expanded his world by, including the other folks who were in the laundry with him. And I love that and everything. And he even tried to work with the villains in this one. And, and of course, they were the villains. Of course, they're not going to work with him. Mm-hmm. And, because Wonka was on his own. And then, my friends, of course, we got the Oompa Loompa. It had to come up. And, very, very interesting way of portraying the Oompa Loompa. And I didn't mind it, actually. And I thought it was kind of fun. And I thought Hugh Grant was almost charming as the Oompa Loompa in some ways. I was going in, okay, that's going to be the weak point for me. I'm not going to like it. I really am not going to like it. I liked it, damn it. I really, really liked it. And that was part of the fun of it. And, I thought it was fun to see the Oompa Loompa, and I thought he did a decent job. And, I want to know now, because in the original, they say that, Wonka rescued all the Oompa Loompas from Loompa Land from being eaten by these creatures. Mm-hmm. And, and so I want to, that could be the sequel right there.
That could be. Yeah, I mean, obviously they went with the design of the Oompa Loompas from the 71 movie. It doesn't match the design in the book. Thank God for that. It doesn't
Oh, they were
match.
scary. They were scary looking in the book.
In the book, well, they were also not very politically correct in the book. And there is that sort of attachment with them as well. This sort of like, so you got to be careful. And I have seen that there's criticism of the Oompa Loompas in this movie, but I think it's the concept in and of themselves, although I have seen Hugh Grant get some crap because, he's playing a dwarf. But it's weird because it's a CG and he's not even proportionally like, he's so small. In this, when they say that he only go I think in the book it says that Oompa Loompas only go up to the knees, and I think they really took that to heart in this movie because he is so tiny. That it really took me aback. I didn't think the CG was bad, but it just took me aback about like how small he was. Ashley, what were your thoughts on the Oompa Loompas or the Oompa Loompa, I should say? We do see a few of them in here, but.
Yeah, I think it was the right amount of Oompa Loompa appearance in the movie. I feel like if they had used too much of them, it could have felt too wacky or kind of taken away from the story. So I like that they kind of sprinkled it throughout. And I enjoyed Hugh Grant's performance. He was an absolute hoot as the villain in Paddington 2. So he kind of channels some of that here. But I like that he's kind of just willing to play what is a little bit of a ridiculous role and just kind of go with it. But I felt like they used these well and tied back into the original movie without taking away from that.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm. Elaine, any Oompa Loompa thoughts?
I thought there were going to be more Oompa Loompas. I don't know. I guess I was thinking of the 1971 where they're everywhere. And so I thought there were going to be a lot of Hugh Grant Oompa Loompas like copy pasted everywhere. And so I was kind of like, oh, he's not real. There's an Oompa Loompa in the movie, but there are not Oompa Loompas in the movie, if that makes sense. And so I was kind of like, that surprised me a little bit, but I wasn't mad at that because it was not his story. He's just a little part of Wonka's story. So, and I thought he was fine doing what he did,
Mm-hmm.
I don't have any issues with him.
Well, I kept waiting for him to appear. Obviously Hugh Grant was very, very evident in the promotion, and it was a good halfway through the movie before we saw him. So that surprised me a little bit. And also I'd read, and maybe it's one interview, and maybe it's one of those where they take everything out of context, but Hugh Grant was saying he was not happy with how that turned out. So maybe that clouded it a little bit, maybe had a little bit of a negative feeling going into it. But once he got into the Oompa Loompa song, I thought to myself, this is not the most undignified that Hugh Grant has been involved with personally or on screen. So if he's worried, I don't think he has to worry about that part of it. If anything, it makes it a little more approachable.
It's a sort of double-edged sword when you get Hugh Grant to do publicity, to go on a press tour, because you never know what he's going to say. And a lot of times it talks, I don't know. I don't know him personally, but sometimes he just rubs me the wrong way with things he says. And then he's like, oh, I don't mean them. I'm just saying things to be silly or whatever. And who knows what's really going on there. I think he has said a lot of things like, oh, this is like what my career's been reduced to or something like that. But I don't think I get a feeling he does it just to make sure that people are talking about him or about the project that he's on. To be honest with you, I think the work is solid. I don't see him phoning it in. It seems like he, and look, it's up to him whether or not he wants to sign to do this. It's like Absolutely. He could say no. If he doesn't want to be an Oompa Loompa, he could say no. So I don't know how to feel about him as off screen anyway. So I try to limit my thoughts about him to just what he does on screen.
Yeah.
Yeah, that's called the Tom Cruise effect, where you worry about what's on screen, you don't worry about the craziness off screen.
Yeah,
Exactly.
well, yeah. Unfortunately, there's so many others that are like that too now. But I think that I think to me too, the Oompa Loompas, the way that the Oompa Loompas are handled, I think also this movie only works or really works if you've seen the 71 version, like because we get audio cues of the Oompa Loompa theme before we see an Oompa Loompa. Like when he talks about, somebody stealing my chocolate and it's an orange skinned guy or, whatever. And you're like, and you hear the music in the background and it's the Oompa Loompa theme. So we know that that's coming. Whereas if you don't, I like the visual, Elaine. I like it's hard not to kind of move your shoulders, right?
Yeah.
Once the music starts, I can't stop going.
Exactly. Yeah. I mean, that's what he says, it's like even Willie, who usually likes a good song and dance number, is like, once the Oompa Loompa thing starts, he's like, no, you don't need to do that. And he's like, sorry, it's already started. I'm already dancing. Yep. But I don't know how much of that is CG and how much is him, doing the singing and the dancing or whatever, or the movements. But it's fine. I think it works. I think it works a lot better than, again, the other choices that we've seen.
I'm actually glad that they didn't CGI hundreds of versions of him in there, like they did with Deep Roy and the Tim Burton.
I was just
version.
thinking that, too. It's like each Oompa Loompa should be different because that's the way it should be. It shouldn't be just a clone.
No,
Right.
Yeah, I think so too. Yeah, just another bash against the Burton movie, which is I don't mind that.
I have no problem doing that.
I don't either. But enough about bashing that one. But I praise this overall. I think this was a really, really great movie. It accomplished a lot of things. I think it stands on its own for the most part. I think it does lean into the prequel aspect of it a bit. And like I said, I do think that the cat, the crew that he I don't know why Larry Chucklesworth, the character, was in there at all. He did nothing for me. And I will say even Lottie Bell didn't really do much for me. I was kind of like, why are these characters in here? Do we need this many? Why don't we just have 2 or 3? I thought the one girl, Noodle, Cal Elaine was great. I thought she was fantastic.
She was wonderful.
Yeah, she was fantastic.
As they said in the movies, she was the brains behind everything.
And the scene with them in the giraffe, the two of them in the giraffe, where they were kind of milking the giraffe, I thought was really cute. I mean, they had a chemistry, and I liked that a lot.
Yeah.
But I did think that they did kind of overplay how many other characters. I thought we'd get a cameo from one of the kid actors because they're all still alive, but we didn't get anything like that. So I don't know. Do we want to see more? It didn't leave it hey, there's going to be a sequel. I mean, it kind of is its own thing, but like I said, a good success. There is talk that there's going to be a Dahlverse. Now, Wes Anderson recently did a lot of short films on Netflix that were based on Roald Dahl stories. Mm-hmm. I don't know if anybody's seen any of those. I haven't watched them. I've heard good things about them, but I don't know if they're any good. I don't think they're related to this at all. But there is talk that there may be more coming in the sort of they might want to. And of course, everything is about building a franchise universe thing now. Mm-hmm. But how do we feel about seeing more just Wonka, or what do we want to see in the future? Does this have a future? Elaine, we're going to start with you.
I don't know that I necessarily want more Wonka, because that might be a very depressing movie to see how he gets the dark edge that he has in 71. And so I kind of am okay if that's just left to my imagination, because there was something that Noodle kept saying to him, that the greedy get the needy, or I can't remember what it was. And so I think that greed that's surrounding him that he's trying to fight is eventually what turns him to the dark side of things. And so I don't know that I necessarily need to see that. But if they make a movie and they do it well, then I'll watch it. But I'm not saying I want another prequel part 2 right now. Yeah.
And there's nothing to say that they owe any sort of allegiance to the 71 version. I mean, obviously they're basing a lot of stuff on it, but I don't think that, that they necessarily have to go that route if they don't want to. They can tell, I think they have the freedom to tell their own Wonka stories from here on out then they could totally go against whatever happens in the versions that we've seen before, the later movies. But but Matt, what about you? Where do you want to see more of this? You want more chocolate?
I'm game. I think we will, because, like you say, they are kind of promoting it as part of a Roald Dahl universe, which implies, and not like a whole lot of properties. This is one of the biggest ones, so I think so. And I think you're right. I think they could redo Charlie and the Chocolate Factory and not necessarily tie it in with the Gene Wilder version. But I would like to see a little bit of how he got from one extreme to the other. So maybe a story where he really deals with some hardships, overcomes them, have a happy ending, but maybe he ends it a little more jaded, a little darker, a little more suspicious of people. Yeah, I mean, do we need an Empire Strikes Back trilogy, entry in a trilogy that ends very dark? Do we need one that ends kind of depressingly? And especially if I think this is going to do well with kids. And I don't think you want to necessarily throw a dark movie into kids. I mean, I think the real reason why they may enjoy this is because he's a very likable character. Yeah, let's let them grow up a little bit before we scare them with all the dark stuff.
Mike, what about you? Where do you want to see this go from here?
Well,
if you do.
Oh, I do. Like I said earlier, we could always go to Loompa Land and find out how the Oompa Loompas end up with it if they want to do a direct sequel. But if they want to base something off of one of the books, I so want to see on the big screen Charlie and the Great Glass Elevator. I've been waiting to see that ever since I read the book, probably in second grade or third grade. And I've like, where is this? Why haven't we seen this? Because in the original Willy Wonka, you see that Charlie and Grandpa and Willie fly off in the elevator. And, I wanted to see what was next with that. And, there's other, movies that they've tried making of Roald Dahl's books, and they've not done well on the big screen, but it could be just how they were produced and everything. A few of them have been done with puppets and stuff, like James and the Giant Peach and a couple other ones. So, it'll be very interesting to see what they do. I think kids need movies like this. I think kids need to start seeing things a little more lighthearted, not as dark, or something based off of toys. I just think it's, I think there's tons of books that they could be doing this with. And I think this is a great start.
Don't sell toys, sell chocolate.
Yep. Sell chocolate. Yeah. Get fat, like what Keegan-Michael Key's character in this one.
Like Gusto. Yeah. We didn't even talk about him. I mean, wow. Like that. I thought it was really interesting that they sort of gave him he's doing this sort of like exaggerated kid, like Scorsese cop accent, like New York cop accent. Like, well, I thought it was just very strange choice, but yeah, obviously we see the effects that chocolate can have on you if you're not careful. Gustav, right?
17,000 boxes worth of chocolate.
It is interesting. I do know that, despite the fact that the 71 version didn't do very well, that film didn't do very well box office wise and everything, and Paramount didn't know what to do, they did explore the idea of doing a follow-up. They did explore the idea of doing, bringing the second book, Glass Elevator, to the big screen, but Dahl was so angry at the movie. He hated the 71 Willy Wonka and the Chocolate Factory movie. But then again, he said no, and he withdrew all the rights to that, and so that's why we didn't get another Wonka movie for a long time. I can't imagine what he would have thought about, the Burton one. But then again, if the more you read about Dahl, he was kind of an angry, bitter guy anyway. So if he was taking that Wonka tour, he would have been like the Oompa Loompas would have taken him away for some reason, because he would have been like, he would have made it to the end either. He's no Charlie, that's for sure.
Yeah.
All right, so sort of, I guess, rank it. Like, I don't know, Mike, I don't know how you feel about Timothy. Sort of. There was obviously all those jokes about Willy Wonka being a Time Lord.
Yes,
the chocolatier.
Well, you saw it in this one, big time.
Certainly, he has elements of being, a Time Lord, like in Doctor Who. I don't know where you would rank Timothy as being like on that level in this Wonka. But as far as rating the film goes, we'll start with you, Ashley. What do you say?
Yeah, I'm gonna give it 4 out of 5 chocolates. I really enjoyed it. I found it to be very charming. This is one that I'll definitely want to watch again. It kind of feels like a good holiday winter season movie. I would be curious to, like, you had mentioned watching it back to back, watching this one and then the original one to see how kind of they flow together. But yeah, I think it's a nice family film. I think my kiddos will enjoy watching it when they get older. And yeah, just it made me feel happy. It made me want to go make some chocolate. So I enjoyed it.
I really wanted to drink hot chocolate after that one.
Yeah.
Oh man, yeah. It's like I think the theater missed an opportunity to sell like a snack pack, like some fancy little chocolates and like a mug of hot chocolate to go with the movie. So
yeah,
next time AMC.
I was kind of surprised that the chain didn't have Wonka bars as a choice for the concession stand. Elaine, what about you? How many chocolate bars do you give it?
I'll give it a 4 out of 5 also. I really did enjoy it, and I am looking forward to watching it again when it's streaming, if we buy the Blu-ray. However we end up watching it at home, I'm looking forward to doing that again.
Yeah, I'm kind of curious as to how like some of the scenes were done, because I think they were really, I mean, obviously this is really CG heavy. I don't think there's like a lot of practical effects, although I did hear there was a lot of chocolate on set, and it did make a lot of the actors, including Timothy, quite ill. After you do that 57th take of having to eat chocolate, like a chocolate bar, there's only so much of that you could take before you're like, ooh, I need to see a dentist.
Yeah.
I don't know if it came with dental insurance, this role, but or diabetes.
You saw what
medication.
happened to Olivia Colman's teeth, so definitely.
Or insulin. Matt, what about you? How many bars of chocolate?
Well, I'm gonna deduct it 0.25 from everyone else. I'm gonna go 3.75. I'm gonna deduct it the 0.25 because I had serious concerns about how hygienic it was to drink that chocolate milk off the floor.
Yes,
yes. That was bothering me. and so, for the opposite reason, I would not have wanted anybody handing me some chocolate milk at that point. or out of the big, the plumbing when they uncovered the well of the chocolatier's reserves, and they were just drinking it straight from that. I'm like, no, don't drink that. You're going to get diseases and
people
sick
have been
and stuff.
swimming in that.
Oh no!
2 people almost drowned in that.
And I don't think they're the first people to drown in that one. Truthfully,
no, probably not. There's probably. Oh my goodness, I don't even want to think about it. Mike, how many chocolate bars?
I'm going to give it a solid 4 chocolate bars, and it was enjoyable. I was, humming to the songs along with it, and I didn't mind Timothy. I think if you rank them in order, Gene is always going to be up on the pedestal, but I think he comes like a top hat right below that. And I thought he was quite good. I thought he was charming as heck. And I forgot that he was in Dune watching this. Sorry, Ashley, but but it was just a lot of, it was enjoyable. And that's what I wanted with this movie. Do I think it's the best movie of the year? Oh, heck no. But was it the best movie I've seen this week? Yes. So that's a good way to put it. It's not going to beat Godzilla, folks. Come on.
No. Yeah, that's true. Yeah, 4 bars for me as well. And I think it was just like a good chocolate bar. It was sweet and really, I don't know how to describe it. It was a good time at the movies. I think it was a nice, wholesome movie. I think Timothée impressed the hell out of me. I think he's, like I said, I've only really seen him in Dune, which I thought he was solid in that. But in this, he really owned the role. And I think he's talented enough, not to say that he should do this or that I want to see him do this, but I got the feeling that he's talented enough that if he did have to play like the darker Wonka, that he could more than be up for the challenge. I think he could do that. I think there's something about that wink that you're just kind of like, well, maybe it's there somewhere. You don't even see a spark of it in this movie. There's no hostility in this movie. I mean, when he gets depressed, there's that, but there's no like bitterness to his chocolate whatsoever. And there's no bitterness to this movie. So, and that's the way I like my chocolate. So, that's cool. So, we all pretty much agree this is a good way to enjoy the holidays, if you will.
Mm-hmm. I'm looking forward to seeing it streaming again.
Absolutely, yes. So look for it probably on Max. The one to watch for all things Warner Brothers usually, but we'll see as that goes on. And I do think, Ashley, like I said, I mean, it does work really well. I did watch both of them the same day, and it is interesting to watch it following up. So cool. Well, that's our thoughts on Wonka. We're going to take a quick break, and when we come back, we're going to close out the show.
Okay, YouTube folks, this is my part. And actually, Mike actually took my middle part of the segment because I was going to talk about what would we want to see in sequels, what would we want to see in the rest of the Dahlverse. But one of the things I liked about it, this movie was wholesome. There wasn't, other than people wanting to kill folks and stuff like that. But I think it was pretty awesome to have characters in here that that you can support, that you could kind of relate to, but it was interesting. What other kids series could you see? We're going to step away from the Dahlverse a little bit, and they're talking about making a Dr. Seuss verse, and stuff. What is there other series out there? Because they started with Paddington, and such. Could you see, what else could you guys see? And I'm opening to everybody.
I have a couple in mind. Hanna-Barbera. There's a lot of good properties there. Sid and Marty Krofft. Some of those, I think could do pretty well if they, modified them for today's kids versus what we had when we were a kid. But
exactly. I saw what they did with the banana splits recently, so I don't want to see.
Okay, well, we could do a better job than that, I think. I mean, okay. I would love. Was it Sigmund and Sea Monster? Was that the name of that show?
Yeah,
I love that as a kid. Yeah, I was a regular on my Saturday morning viewings.
Mm-hmm. And don't get me started on the Land of the Lost movie. Nope, not touching on that. Mm-hmm. But yeah, I could see Sid and Marty Krofft does have, but that's interesting. They've done live action Flintstones. They've been talking about doing a live action Jetsons for years, but we've never seen it. So it would be, very interesting to see what we can get. But, is there, any other like novels or books, series? Because, you guys, Ashley, you're getting right into the thick of it with, kids' books and everything, especially with your daughter.
Yeah. I don't know if it would be a good idea or not, but I'm surprised nobody's floated out a live action Magic School Bus yet.
Ooh, I'd watch that in a heartbeat.
I feel if you would have to get the perfect person to play Miss Frizzle, and I don't know who that would be, but I feel like if you could do that, and maybe you could even make that kind of like a fun musical, kind of similar in tone. So I think it could be good, but I think you'd have to be really careful. But I feel like that's a show that I loved as a kid growing up. So definitely have that nostalgia tie. So I would be interested to see what could be done with that.
I would watch that because I have nostalgia ties with it, but for watching it with my older son when he was little, because he watched it when he was little.
Sure. William
It's
was
such
the
a
same
cute
way.
show, although terrifying, like what these kids get to do. Like, did they sign like parental release slips for these field trips? Like, do they have any idea what Miss Frizzle is doing to these children?
They were going to go in the human body. you know.
Yeah.
Right. Yeah. Or
Exactly.
like outer space, volcano.
Yeah. I'm so far removed now from like kids properties because my kids are not kids anymore.
Mhm.
So I'm the only thing that pops in my head is Bluey.
Bluey.
The dog. Yeah, it's
Blue's Clues?
no, not
No,
Blue's
Bluey.
Clues. Bluey. It's a
Right.
family of dogs. It's the mom, dad, and is it 2 sisters?
Mhm.
And they're blue heeler dogs from Australia. And they're really adorable. I've seen a couple episodes, but I think maybe sometimes like with the Flintstones and stuff like that, it's harder to translate cartoons into live action
Oh, sure.
sometimes. And so since Bluey's a cartoon, that might be a little more difficult. And I can't think of any, I don't know any of the new like book series that are out for kids now because that
remember-
hasn't already been done.
Yeah.
There was a kids series when I was growing up. It's called The Boxcar Children.
Oh,
I do
I
remember
was
that one.
thinking of that too.
And those have never been made into any kind of movie or such. So, stuff like that, I think could be very interesting to see. But they would have to, I'm sure they would dramatize it and make it, more,
Soap operas.
Dark and gritty.
CW-ish, as
Yeah.
we like to say.
The CW boxcar children.
Exactly.
Where they're all pretty and have perfect hair and perfect
Yeah.
clothes.
They're
Yeah.
ridiculously good looking.
Yeah.
And
Exactly.
seem to be suspiciously in their 20s and 30s, even though
Yeah.
they're playing teenagers.
Exactly.
That's the thing with, it's really difficult because there seems to be, this sort of desire or whatever for adult filmmakers or people who are in those positions to make these like kids things or whatever, turn these kids properties into something edgy and something that they were never meant to be. And because of that, I have to give credit, a lot of credit. And then I didn't do this during the recording of the show, unfortunately, but Paul King did such an amazing job keeping this movie, keeping Wonka as a really friendly, positive movie that is, I think, got a really lot of strong messages and is good for, young kids to even adults to take a look at and go, man, that is something that, we should emulate. Like it is really difficult and it's sincere. He doesn't come across as phony. This is Wonka now. He doesn't come across as phony. None of it actually does in the movie. Even it's very, I imagine, because I've heard that the Paddington movies are the same way with the charm. And it's just like, you just don't have filmmakers making these kind of movies anymore. And unfortunately, every time, like all the things that I grew up with, when a lot of the series that I really, really enjoyed, like, Hardy Boys and Nancy Drew and all that. I mean, they try to update them, and yes, Nancy Drew did get her own CW show, or, how about the Hardy Boys when they're like old men and they're just these broken down detectives or something, and one of them gets murdered and all that. Like, it's just like, that's not what,
I think they called that Simon and Simon for a while.
It's just, I mean, it's just crazy the way, like, oh, I've got a take on, let's just, like you were saying with the Banana Splits, as soon as Winnie the Pooh became public domain, they made a horror movie out of that. Like, it's just like, stop it. Like, don't, like, I don't appreciate that. And because I don't think we there's no balance, right? There's no there's a lot of edgy stuff, but there's not a lot of wholesome stuff. And I don't want to sound like an old, in my day, things were much more wholesome. And, I still think that there's an honesty and a comfort that you can do that with that doesn't feel forced and it doesn't feel insincere. And I think Paul King is right there. Like, he's got it. Like, he knows. I don't think there are a lot more, filmmakers like that. And I think it's what's missing from a lot of the stuff that Disney's trying to do, that Pixar is trying to do now. Like, it's just not there, It's like they're just going through the motions.
Yeah.
Exactly. I don't disagree with you on that. And, and it makes me long for yesteryear. God, I sound old saying that. But yeah, it's true. It makes me feel, we had series of, even Disney at the time was doing not cartoons, but live action movies at the times growing up. We had Herbie the Love Bug. We had movies like The Cat from Outer Space. We had, Gus. We had, Escape from Witch Mountain, stuff like that. And, and that was one of the first sequels that I had seen was Return from Witch Mountain, And so it was, some pretty awesome stuff that we were getting at the time. And, and we don't have that kind of stuff for kids. It's now, commercialism down their throats.
Now we need a gritty reboot of the Apple Dumpling Gang.
Yeah, no, sorry, nobody. I couldn't think of anyone to replace Don Knotts, and
the Apple Dumpling Gang goes to Deadwood.
Yeah,
like this really dark western.
It's really.
Ian McShane plays that.
You win, Matt.
Yeah, that one would be great. Oh God. No, but it was just interesting, the stuff, and I want to see more stuff like this. I'm excited to see more stuff like this. That's why this gave me hope for a lot of it. And thank you, Elaine. We are now a cat video, so I appreciate it.
We'll double our stats here.
Exactly. This will be the largest YouTube videos that we have.
Oh, I could explode the percentages of that if I needed to.
But it's but that's kind of the fun stuff with this, and I think we have a lot of cool stuff out there that has not even scratched the surface, and I would love to see original stories that are good, and not just sequels. So we'll see, folks. You never know where we'll end up with this kind of stuff. All right, let's go ahead and wrap up the show. Okay, so that's going to wrap up another episode of the Earth Station One podcast. I want to thank everyone for joining us. Matt, thank you so much for being here tonight.
I had a blast as always.
Anything you want to shout out about, sir?
I just want to give kudos to the 60th anniversary specials of Doctor Who. I think they brought an energy and enthusiasm that the series has lacked for quite a while. I've been seeing it with some friends over at the Sandy Springs Library, and it's not perfect. I can find flaws in it, but it's fun. And ultimately, that's what I've been missing for quite a long time with Doctor Who.
That's okay then. So it's okay.
Yes.
That's awesome, man. I loved what we got to see. It was fun, and it made Doctor Who fun again, and that's what we needed, and made me really excited for the next season and what we're hopefully going to get with Shooty as Dr. 15. So it'll be very interesting to see. Elaine, thank you so much for joining us.
Thank you for having me.
And Judy wanted me to say hi. So
hi.
She'd message, Elaine's going to be on. Say hi to both of them. Anything you want to shout out about?
I wasn't prepared for that.
Wow, aren't you on a podcast or something?
Yes, I am. Yes, but You can find me on another podcast, Monkeeing Around, a podcast about the monkeys.
Yep, and part of the ESO Network.
Yes,
Exactly, which is wonderful, and I'm so glad to have you guys part of the network.
we're happy to be
awesome.
part. Yeah.
And Ashley, you did great. Always.
Thank you. It was so much fun talking about the movie. So it's
Anything
nice
you
to
want to
be
shout
back.
out about?
Yeah, just want to give a quick shout out. Just everybody, the holidays can be kind of a hectic, stressful time. So just make sure you're taking care of yourself physically and mentally, and it's okay to take a step back. And I find I really like going to the movies is a nice time to kind of like decompress and just be engaged in a story and get away. So just make sure you're taking care of yourself and people around you, because this is a time when people can be struggling or in need and they don't always show it. So just look out for the people around you and take care of yourself as well.
Oh, very much so. Definitely, folks. The holidays, some people think it's the most beautiful and wonderful time of the year, but it could be also the most depressing and sad for some folks. So reach out to your friends, reach out to your neighbors, and make sure that everyone's okay. And, just try to brighten their day if you can. It's a good thing. And Mr. Mike, we've made it through another one.
We did, and as always, it's my pleasure.
Anything you want to shout out about, sir?
I do. Our good friend, he hasn't been on the show for a long time, but he's been busy. But our good friend, writer Van Jensen, has a book. It's actually his debut novel that was just released called Godfall. And I am super excited for him because the book itself is pretty fun. I am about 2/3 the way through it. It's a great read. It is a little bit of science fiction mixed with, a lot of science fiction, but it's also kind of a Rod Sterling-esque science fiction. These stuff happens, and you definitely get see what the effects are on people, real people that you can identify with. And I definitely recommend the book. Like I said, I'm about 2/3 the way through, so I haven't finished it off yet. But I'm very much looking forward to it. I hope he sticks the landing. But in any case, I am both super happy for him and insanely jealous because Godfall has been picked up by Ron Howard's company, and he is attached to direct an adaptation of it as well.
Whoa.
So yeah, it is. But I it's weird because I see conflicting reports. I don't know if it's a series or if it's going to be a movie, or I think it's still in a lot of pre-production stages right now. So, but it's Imagine Entertainment, which is Ron Howard's company. We'll see what it looks like and everything like that. So I'm really curious to see what happens. But the book itself, no matter how what the series or movie turns out to be, check out the book. It is Godfall. It's available at most book retailers, and it's a really, really interesting read. I think anybody who likes like I said, the work of Rod Serling will appreciate that as well. So.
All right, my shout out real quick. I'm going to echo a little bit about what Ashley said. My big thing is giving on the holidays. And one of the things I do on Christmas is I go around to various hospitals during Christmas and I make deliveries. I go to, probably about 5 or 6 local hospitals in the general vicinity of where I live and such. And I drop off donuts to the emergency room folks. And it's been a tradition I've done over the last couple of years. And I go and I pick up 24 donuts for each hospital and just literally just go into the emergency room, go to the desk and drop them off and give it to the staff because they are so overworked during the holidays and everything. And people don't know that, these people are working 24 hours a day, 7 days a week. Some folks, they do different shifts, of course, but these places don't close. And especially right around Christmas and New Year's is some of their busiest times. And, we go and we, drop it off and we do it to celebrate with them. and it's always a nice thing to do. And the looks on their faces when they go, because they expect me to come up, hi, I have an itch in my back, or I have, I found this thing on my, butt or something like that. No, I bring them, I come in with the boxes and, drop it off. And I said, this is just for you, please, thank you for everything you do. And they said, are you part of an organization or something? No, just do it for the heck of it. And it's just a way of saying thank you for people who deserve it. Sometimes, in the past, we've also done stuff with, for fire stations or police stations. Same thing, folks. These people are sometimes underappreciated and stuff for everything that they do. So definitely check it out, especially at the holidays like this. All right, folks, that's going to wrap it up. So thank you, as always, for listening to the Earth Station One podcast. We do appreciate you guys so much. And you know what? We couldn't, as we like to say, we couldn't do this without you. As we like to say, always remember, if you want to help support the station, we have a great Tee-Public store. I think through the end of the year, they're going to be having 35% off everything at our shop.
It seems like it, yeah. And
so definitely check it out. I just picked up some new ESO stickers for us, because, I don't have enough stickers on the back of my car. So, I decided to put some of the podcast stickers on and everything. And, it's cool. You can get t-shirts, you can get magnets, you can get, posters and flyers and, anything you can think of with our faces on it or the logos. It's pretty awesome. And it's not expensive at all. So definitely check it out. We also wanted to say thank you to all our patrons at the end of the year, especially. Thank you for everyone who supports us. We couldn't have done this without you guys this year, and it's always great to know that people are also out there supporting us and everything. We also wanted to, let you know you can join with as little as $1 a month. Go to patreon.com/ESO Network. We also want to hear from you guys, as always. Please leave us feedback at earthstation1.com. That's the best way for anyone to get in touch with us. And remember, you can also find Earth Station One wherever fine podcasts are found. We're going to be up on a couple new locations soon. We're working on talking to a couple other companies about getting us up there. But we are now up on the YouTube music player. So definitely check us out. And as always, if you want, we are up on Apple. We are up on Amazon. We're even up on Alexa. That's right. You can go, hey, Alexa, play the Earth Station One podcast.
I haven't done that in a while.
I know. It's been a while. I wanted to do it at least once more before the end of the year. Thank you very much. Of course, you guys are loving that one. So, as always, thank you so much. If you liked us, please like and subscribe. I know a few people are going to be canceling their subscription now after me doing that Alexa thing. But you know what? It was worth it so much. As always, my name is Mike Faber. Thank you for listening. Thank you, of course, to Ashley Pauls, Elaine Sweatman, Matt Sweatman, and of course, my partner, Mr. Mike Gordon. Thank you so much, everyone. We'll see you next one. And always, just remember, Oompa, loompa, diddly-dee. And that's it.
You're listening to the ESO Network, your station for all things geek.